Hi, Spotify, and anyone out there listening. My name is Gina, and I'm here with my uncle Robert Ecker of Midnight Kennel. He is a professional bird dog trainer and handler, and this is our first podcast together.
Wow, this is very exciting, Gina. This idea came up about a week or so ago, and we're going to give it a whirl. Hopefully there's an interest in talking bird dogs and bird dog training. So let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens.
Okay, you want to tell us a little about Midnight Kennel?
I do. I first started with bird dogs in my childhood. My Uncle Peter raised English setters that he hunted with and did some amateur field trials. I can remember as a little boy going to a field trial with him, and that was my first taste of the sport. Really didn't interest me much until my high school days when I decided I wanted to bird hunt, and that led me down this path. Started with a pair of Gordon setter puppies that I purchased actually by selling all my baseball cards. I had a large collection. I sold them to some friends and got enough money to buy 2 puppies and a couple of Mason dog kennels that, interestingly enough, those 2 Mason kennels, which I purchased in probably 1984, are still in my kennel to this day. Amazing craftsmanship with those Mason kennels. That being said, I hooked up with the Freeland Kennel Club. My uncle was secretary there for a while and a lifelong member, and started taking my dogs there to get them ready for hunting season, and got into field trials through the Freeland Kennel Club. Once I started field trialing, it didn't take long. I think in 1993 or 94, I went down the path of a professional bird dog trainer. Excuse me. I had a setter, a young setter, sired by Still Meadows Benjamin, that I wanted to sell. I just didn't have the money to run him and campaign him. And a very nice gentleman who passed away a few years ago, great guy by the name of Dick Wyatt from Illinois, contacted me about purchasing that dog and asked me if I would keep him and run him in field trials. So if I agreed to that, that would make me a professional. And I did, and I guess, as they say, the rest is history. I've been doing it professionally full-time since about 1998. And we're at this location here in Quakeake, Pennsylvania, since, I'm going to say, about that same time, about 98. So we're here that long.
Okay. For anyone that's just finding our podcast or is new to dogs, do you want to explain the sport a little?
Yeah, well, hopefully a lot of people tuning in or listening to the podcast are somewhat familiar with bird dogs, bird hunting with pointing dogs, and field trials. Now, I've dabbled in all levels and all different types of events and competitions and testing. I've trained dogs for the shoot to retrieve, National Shoot to Retrieve circuit, for AKC hunt tests. I've worked some NAVDA dogs for clients on their pointing. Obviously, American Field, which is now UKC field trials. We've done all sorts of those, from horseback to wild bird cover dog trials. and obviously the Liberated Bird Trials, U.S. Complete, National Bird Hunters, Southern Bird Hunters, American Bird Hunters. We've competed in all those types of trials. So what I thought, Gina, is as we go forward, if listeners wanted to ask questions and we could maybe discuss training techniques or hunting tips or whatever, conditioning, raising pups, they could get in touch with me with their questions, and in between podcasts I could go through those and pick and choose some topics and expand on those. I guess we could put a link to my email address, my Facebook Messenger, even telephone number, however they want to get in touch with me. We'll definitely have a link to that, and we'll also post a link of our website, which really, it's more of a channel to shoot you into different aspects of our media, like our YouTube channel, which we have up and running, and we hope this fall to do some really interesting hunting videos there, and also our Facebook page, which we update that almost on a daily basis. That there's a lot of good training tips and information there too. So we're trying to help new people get started. The sport definitely needs that, and also, even people that have been in it a while, maybe give some of our knowledge that we've gained over the last 35 years or so, to make them better hunters, better trainers, better competitors, whatever. So again, if you have any questions about bird dogs, and you can get in touch with us. Specifically, when I say bird dogs, a lot of people, if I meet out, and you say bird dogs, they might say, oh, well, I had a Springer Spaniel, or, I had a Beagle that I hunted pheasants with. Our training is specifically to pointing, the pointing end of it. And that includes any breed. I can't even imagine how many different breeds. It's pretty hard to name a pointing breed that we haven't worked over 35 years. Obviously, our most common and most successful dogs we've had are English setters and English pointers. But that being said, we've titled Irish setters, Brittany's. We had a dog we trained that went on to be a national champion, Vizsla. So any breed that points a bird. We actually, do you remember, Gina, last summer we had a poodle.
Our friend Hank,
yeah. A client of mine that had us train a Gordon setter for him a long time ago contacted me last summer. He came upon a standard poodle, and that was going to be his dog for the next few years and his hunting partner, and he wanted to know if I could get him into bird hunting. And we took him and ended up with a couple of months of training. Hank did very well. He'd find birds, flush them, and retrieve them.
And he loved it.
Oh, he loved it. Absolutely. It was a really nice dog, and liked to hunt. So again, any breed. We're not breed specific here at Midnight Kennel. So,
I wonder how Hank's doing.
Yeah, we'll have to get in touch with Mr. Parker and find out. I'll definitely make a note of that, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that next time, how Hank made out.
Yeah, Hank, if you're listening, leave us a comment on Facebook.
There you go. So,
I had one more question. I don't know if you were ready to wrap it up, but I had one more question.
Wrap it up? I thought we were going to talk here for a long time.
I don't know. Well, it's up to you. But I know this story, but I thought you could tell the story about how you came up with, or rather how Grace Ecker came up with the idea of Midnight Kennel.
Yeah, my dear beloved mother.
Who's probably listening.
I'm sure she's listening. A shout out to her. She's always been super supportive of me. Actually, my whole family, my my wife Kimberly, my son Michael, obviously Gina, my niece, have always been supportive, because it's a tough profession to be, on the road, going to trials, long hours out in the field, whatever. And everybody's been supportive of me, and I thank them for that. But anyway, one of the first puppies that I ever got to get into field trials was a puppy. Let me think if I can remember his name. I think I called him Star. But anyway, I purchased him from another gentleman that's deceased now, and a lot of if any old-time field trialers from Pennsylvania, grouse trials, are listening, they'll remember this name, Bill Umble. And he was out in western Pennsylvania near Pittsburgh, and he had the last litter ever sired by a famous setter champion by the name of Amos Mosley. So that's going back quite a ways. Anyway, I bought the pup from him, and his name was, I think I named him Star. He was almost pure white, almost an albino. I mean, he had a pink nose and solid white, no ticking on him whatsoever. And I brought the pup home, and I was still living at home with my parents, and part of the deal was to have this pup. My mother got to name him, and she's kind of has an off-the-wall sense of humor, and she decided that this pure white dog should be called Midnight, black, whatever. So it was kind of a funny thing there, and so I named him Midnight Star, and then after that it kind of stuck with the Midnight, and any puppy I got after that I named Midnight whatever. Never registered the name, so kind of went away, but I kept it as my kennel name and my business name for all these years. So that's where the Midnight comes from. I used to have my truck lettered, with a decal, Midnight Kennel, whatever, and I have a topper on it, and I'd get calls. A lot of times people would see me driving around, and they would think that Midnight Kennel, that I did coon dogs, because you hunt coons with hounds at night. So, but no, we don't do coon dogs. Although I'll tell you what, if this podcast goes for a while, I would love to get someone that does coon dogs on here, because I had the fortune of hunting with some really good coon dogs years ago. In North Carolina, one winter I spent with Joe Edwards of Six Runs Plantation, and he had some friends. We had a coon problem on the plantation. They were getting into the quail pens and whatever, so he had some friends come over, and I went out for an evening with them hunting coons, and it was just incredible. It was a lot of fun. It's different, but a lot of fun. So,
how many Midnight dogs did you have?
Well, now I don't own any dogs of my own. Occasionally, like right now, we have a house dog, a Gordon Setter, but she's not a Midnight dog. But anyway, once I became a pro, I decided not to have my own dogs, so not that many. I mean, maybe a handful. The most famous was my first champion, a little setter by the name of Midnight Light. That was back in the late 80s, early 90s. Actually, I was still an amateur at that time, and won a couple of nice open championships with her. And then once I turned pro, I retired her and really haven't had any more dogs after that with the Midnight. So
I have 2 questions.
Okay,
have you
shoot.
ever owned a pointer? Personally?
Yeah.
Because I can't remember any.
Yeah, like I said, probably not. I mean, if you go back in the last 20, well, my son Michael is, what is he? He's 23 now. He just turned 23.
Yeah.
So in his lifetime, in the last 23 years, the only dogs that I've actually owned, we had an Irish setter. Her name was Annie. She was our house dog when he was an infant. And when she passed away, actually she was sired by a great Irish setter by the name of Desperado, owned by Dr. Roger Bozer. I had judged the dog several times and had trained with Roger a lot and seen the dog in a lot of field trials and loved him. He was a big, beautiful, dark red Irish setter male. So I wanted a pup out of him, and that was our house dog. And so we had her. I think she lived probably 12, 14 years. I can't remember. Then we had a couple of years where we didn't have a dog of our own. We had some client dogs that spent a lot of time in the house when they were here. You probably remember Coco.
I remember Coco.
Yeah, that was Jonathan Fricke's champion that we trained and campaigned. She was in the house with us. There were several others. Peter Kazak's, he had a female Belle. I think her name was Island Girl, maybe. That was her registered name. We called her Belle. She spent a lot of time in the house with us. But anyway, when Michael was a senior in high school, knowing that he was going to go away to college, and I go on the road a lot, I wanted to get a house dog for Kim, to have someone there in the house with her. And we bought our current house dog, Annabelle, who is a Gordon Setter. I also do own a male Gordon Setter that my good friend Rick Harp down in Florida, I gave the dog to Rick to have, to hunt with and keep, and but I have him for breeding rights, so he is collected and is available as a stud dog. If anyone's interested, he's just sired his first litter. Brian Smith up in Canton, Pennsylvania, has a litter of Gordon Setter pups, sired by, we call him Ramsey. And Rick's daughter, Angelina, named him Ramsey after the famous chef Gordon Ramsay. At some point, if these podcasts take off, I would like to talk a little bit about one of my passions, which is food. I have a food hashtag, diners, drive-ins, and dogs. I travel quite a bit. I get to go to a lot of neat, different, out of the way restaurants and bars and that, with some really great food all over the country. And maybe one podcast we could do on the great places, different places, and food that we've had over the years. And I do own one other dog, and that is a little cocker. Yeah, you remember her? A little cocker spaniel. Her name is Gin. I bought her from Daryl Thomas down in Florida, and my intention is to work her into our hunting program where the pointers point the birds and Gin the cocker goes in and flushes the bird and retrieves it, as our dogs for the most part are steady to wing and shot. But I just haven't had time to really work with her yet. She's still young. I gave her to my nephew Zeke, and he's doing a great job raising her, and at some point we'll start working her out in the field, and like I said, hopefully incorporate her into our hunting program that we do. What else can we talk about here? How's about?
Well, I had 2 more questions.
2 more questions. Shoot.
Yeah. Well, when I'm explaining to people that don't know anything about hunting that I'm going out with my Uncle Robert, we're going to run dogs, their big question is, what's the difference between hunting and a field trial?
Oh, that's a great question. A field trial is a competition. Mm-hmm. 2 dogs are braced together, 2 different handlers, and off they go. The judges follow behind and take notes, and at the end judge and critique all the dogs that are entered and pick the winners. When you go hunting, obviously you're just out there for a good time and to put game in the bag. So you have a limited time in a field trial, so you want to do everything as quickly and efficiently as possible, where when you're hunting, you really aren't confined by time. There's some things that a dog can and can't do in a field trial that if they do or don't do, they could be disqualified or not credited for, and would cost them a placement in the field trial. Where hunting, as long as the dog's under control and having a good time, and you're having a good time, everything's great. So it's that's a great question, but it's pretty detailed, and there's just so many different things that I just can't say one thing or another. But as the podcasts go and we start talking about different training, we could probably expand on that. Like, for instance, a dog, when you're hunting, points a bird. He stops, he smells a bird, he points. He also does that in a field trial. Well, in a field trial, the judges are looking at more than just that he found the bird. They're looking at the style in which he did it. And again, every judge is going to look at style a different way, but hunting, the dog's only there to please you. Whereas in a field trial, the dog has to impress the judges. So there's different things that we do in training and breeding. Breeding is a very, very, very major part of this sport. The dogs are extreme athletes in both hunting and field trials, so breeding is important. Obviously, pointing a bird, smelling a bird and stopping is a genetic trait that's just been intensified over years and years of breeding to make a dog do that. They smell the bird. A fox or a coyote or a wolf is out hunting. He smells the rabbit, the pheasant, and he knows it's out there. Well, his instinct is to creep up and try to get that bird to eat it. And over selective breeding over a long time, we've gotten the domesticated bird dog to actually stop and freeze and stay motionless. And that way, the hunter with a shotgun could get in position to flush and shoot the bird. So that's kind of just a basic difference between hunting and field trials that I can explain.
We could probably
shortly
talk more about that after our first field trial of the season that's coming up.
First field trial of the season coming up at the Midnight Kennel Club. That's our local club here, the Mohegan Bird Dog Club. Our president is Richard Waters. He's from Connecticut. He's one of our clients and good friends that breeds and campaigns champion English pointers. Most notably, his dog Boa Pineywood is a national champion that we have, and so his club, our club. I'm the field trial chairman. We will be hosting a trial at the Freeland Kennel Club, which is about 20 miles from our kennel. Beautiful grounds where I was pretty much cut my teeth with both, field trials and hunting dogs. And that's August. It's coming up August 18th and 19th, I think.
Yes.
18th and 19th. It's a Friday and a Saturday. Should be a good time. Everyone's invited. I think the problem, not the problem, but one issue that we could do to help field trials is let people know that it is a spectator sport. Mm-hmm. A good friend of mine, Brad Blanner, came across some articles from newspapers from back in the 60s. They ran field trials at the Freeland Kennel Club back then, and the one report in the newspaper said that there were over 1,000 spectators at this local field trial. Now when you go to a field trial, that you're lucky if you see 10, 20 spectators. So it's a great summer or fall activity. Get out there and watch some amazing dogs work the field and point birds. If you like dogs and you like dogs that are athletic and working and doing what they love to do, please come. There'll be refreshments there and a nice day out in the field walking. You never know what you're going to see. I mean, different kind of animals, deer, bear, whatever. Obviously, the birds that are out there and these amazing athletes running. That's one thing I'd like to mention to maybe someone that's listening that isn't into a hunting dog. They might just they love dogs. The pointing breeds, they absolutely love to do what they do. They don't want to be just in the house. I mean, they love that too, don't get me wrong. But they want to be out in the field doing what they were bred to do. It's their instinct and their absolute passion is to run and hunt and find birds for sure. I mean, you see that when you're out here at the kennel.
It's so satisfying to see a working animal doing its job and having the time of its life.
Absolutely.
And being in its element.
Absolutely. I agree 100% there.
Dogs, horses, pigeons.
And it's also, it's a lot of fun to see, and you get to see this, see a puppy, a young dog, how everything how they develop. And the neat thing about dogs is obviously, a dog might live a long life, might be 12, 15 years. So in our lifetime, the dogs develop quickly. So, at 6 months old, and then you start taking the pup out and showing them this and showing them birds, showing them whatever. By the time they're a year old, you're like, wow, look how far he's come. And then by the time they're 3 years old and 5 years old, and then they, as they develop. So it's very satisfying to take a puppy and develop a puppy into great things, whether it's a great hunting dog that's had hundreds of birds shot over him in his career, or the ultimate goal to take a puppy and bring him out in the field and he becomes a champion. That's a great thing to witness in my opinion.
Me too.
Yeah.
I love seeing a smart dog and learning, and you can see the wheels turning,
right,
and things starting to click.
That's something a lot of people don't understand too. Is I get asked because I've been involved in a lot of breeding of different dogs and that's the number one attribute.
Is intelligence.
Is intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean a dog that's smart and can learn, the sky's the limit.
touched on all our talking points. Did you have any other thoughts you wanted to?
No, I'm looking forward to this. And again, I'd like it to be driven more by the listeners. I get a lot of calls. In fact, when we wrap this up, I have a friend that called and left a message that he had a training question he wanted to ask me about, and I think instead of just answering questions individually, if whatever question this gentleman has, it's probably a question that many other people out there training their dogs might have, and this way we could get some of the knowledge out there for other people to use. And if it goes in another direction, different topics, that's fine too. I'm passionate about the sport. I'm passionate about bird dogs. I'm passionate about hunting, and I would just love to share that with whoever wants to be involved.
Great. Well, hopefully this is a good outlet for that. And I guess to wrap it up, if anyone's interested or has those questions or comments or different topics they want us to touch on, you can find us on Facebook. That's probably the best place to leave a comment right now.
Right. Well, we'll get this out there.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't have any trouble finding me.
We're Midnight Kennel on Facebook, or they can look up your name, Robert Ecker, on Facebook. And we'll post this link and a little bit more YouTube content. And I think that's it for our first podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Gina. It was a pleasure.
Let's hope this one works, everybody.
Yeah, our first try, we weren't able to save it, but hopefully we'll get this one out here shortly.
All right. Thanks for listening.